In overseas basketball, Europe is the land of opportunity. That's right. Even though it has the best competition, Europe is also the easiest region to get into and also climb in professional hoops. So today I want to show you some of the proven strategies that players have used over the years to elevate and get promoted within the European system. So the first way you can do that is what's known as a dual player license. And you can go anywhere on the internet. I can almost guarantee you will not find this information. So the way this works, a player can sign to two teams at the same time, but they have to be in the same organization. So let's give an example. Real Madrid, it has its A team, or its first team, you can say, that plays in the ACB, but there's also a B team or a second team. So what you can do in Europe, you can sign with the B team, do well, and then get promoted to the A team or the first team within the same season. There's no real limit on how big that jump can be. Provided that you're doing very well, then you could get promoted from 6th division all the way up to 2nd division, or 7th division all the way up to 3rd division. And that can make all the difference in the world come next season when you're applying for jobs, because no longer do you just have 7th division experience on your resume, you have 3rd division experience on your resume now. And that is huge, especially if you can play well within that promotion, within that time that you're with that 1st division team. That's gonna look way better on your resume, and come next year, who knows, you may sign with that 3rd division team, or you could sign with another 3rd division team within that league because they saw you do well within your short stint that you were playing there. Another way that you can quickly elevate in Europe is getting promoted with your team itself. Every year, few teams from every region are either gonna be promoted or demoted within the system. So for instance, let's stay with Germany. In the 4th division, 2 teams are going to be promoted to the 3rd division and 2 teams are going to be demoted to the 5th division. We'll say in general, obviously there's some nuance to this, but this is basically how it works. And likewise, then when you get to the 5th division, 2 teams are going to be demoted to the 6th division and 2 teams are going to be promoted to the 4th division. And you can do the same in the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, all the way down to 11th. And what this does, it actually creates an opportunity for you to promote with your team or get demoted with your team. I had a friend who actually did this. He wanted to play in the 3rd division, so Pro B in Germany. And for years he had tried to play in this division. But the problem was that no 3rd division teams would actually just sign him outright, despite the fact that he was actually doing quite well in the 4th division, around like 18, 20 points around there. So he stayed with this team for years and years and years. And they went from, I believe, like the 6th division all the way up to the 3rd division. It has to be said, sometimes the promotion and relegation doesn't actually work as smoothly as this, because sometimes when you go up in tiers within Europe, there are certain requirements, league requirements for you to actually move up a division. So you have to have a certain amount of people who can enter the stadium. Flooring has to be hardwood. There's all these different stipulations sometimes that you need in order to move up. But this is the general idea. If you are unable and you're stuck at a division, and you want to move up, then move up with your team itself. Win the division, commit to it, and then you can elevate your name in Europe quicker that way. Now, out of all the methods discussed here, probably if you have a passport, that's going to be the fastest way to level up. Europe, out of all the regions, has the most international relationships, meaning they work together as a region. So really there's 3 passport types in Europe: Bosman A, Bosman B, and Cotonou. Now, a Bosman A is essentially just a European Union passport holder. So they're synonymous, they mean the same thing. If you have an Italian passport, a French passport, a Spanish passport, a Polish passport, any country in the EU, then you're a Bosman A player. You are what agents call a Bosman or a Bosman A player. Now, a Bosman B player is any passport that is from an Eastern European country. So this could be countries like Bosnia, Herzegovina, Montenegro, Serbia, these type of countries. And a Cotonou, this is probably the most unique out of all of them. A Cotonou passport is any passport that is from African or Caribbean countries. And here's where it all intertwines together. They're gonna have special roster spots that are designated for Bosman A players, for Bosman B players, and for Cotonou players. Now, it's not in every country, but it is in multiple countries where this does occur. Essentially, you all count as the same thing. You all count as a national on the roster. And that's a huge advantage, because if you qualify as an import, there's really only 2 roster spots for you. Whereas if you count as a national or a Bosman A in some countries, they're gonna have 10 roster spots for you. So think of that huge mathematical advantage that you now have. 2 roster spots out of 12, 10 roster spots out of 12. Not only that, if you're a good Bozeman A player, because there's always gonna be good foreigners, there's always gonna be good imports, because they're everywhere in the United States and they're everywhere in Australia, everywhere in Canada, everywhere in the world. But if you have actual good homegrown players, then your value shoots up a ton. And that can take you from being a 4th division player who's an import all the way up. If you have a passport, then you suddenly become a 2nd division player, because now you don't qualify. You don't take up that roster spot of being an import, of being a foreigner, where it's reserved for some of the better players on the team. Now you have less pressure. You can just fill your role and you can be a good contributor to the team as a national. So I hope that makes sense, because this is a huge, huge thing. If you have some sort of lineage or nationality, or your parents are from somewhere and you haven't tapped into that dual nationality yet, then you're seriously missing out, because this can elevate your career in a huge way. So those are some of the best perks of playing in Europe, but there are some downsides. The first one is the money. So in Europe, the European basketball schedule is almost always, I think in literally every country, it is about 8 to 10 months when you include preseason, in-season, or the season itself, and the playoffs. It's going to be about 8 to 10 months. So that means that there's really only one season per calendar year in Europe. Now, I actually find that pretty cool, because it's pretty unison and you know how long the European season is. Whereas in other regions in the world, it's give or take based on the country. So like in Latin America, in El Salvador, the season goes for about 3-4 months and they have 2 per year. Same thing in Colombia. But then you go to somewhere like Argentina in the 1st division, and Brazil, and those go for 7-8 months. And then you go somewhere else like Nicaragua, and again, it's back to 3 or 4 months. So you really have to know the individual seasons to know how long you'll be playing for. Whereas in Europe, you know, basically bar none, without question, you're gonna be playing 8 to 10 months, whether you sign in Finland, Germany, Spain, France, etc. Now, here's the issue with that. These lower tier levels within Europe, they're gonna pay you less money, or very low money. Again, maybe let's say 200 to 1,200 euros per month. Because of that, and because of the season length within Europe, it can actually take a very long time to level up financially. So let's say that you started at 500 euros for your first season, and then the next season, and you play well, next season, you go to 600 euros. Next season, you go to 700 euros. Next season, you go to 900 euros. Well, within 3 years, because each season is a year, you actually only increased $400. And as a result, 500 to 900, realistically, is that gonna help you and push you towards your life goals within 3 years? It's so low that it's tough to really do anything really with $900 per month. And in some of these other countries in the world, in some of these other regions, it's a 2-month season, 3-month season, 4-month season, but then they go back and they have a second season a month later. So in that way, if you started at $1,000, you do really, really well, you can move up to $1,500. You can move up to $1,800 within the same year. You can move up from 1,000 all the way up to 3,000 by the next calendar year. The third thing is the competition. Europe has the best basketball in the world. And that's not just at the top levels, that's at the lower levels. Don't get it twisted. Just because it's low money doesn't mean that it's low competition. And because of that, they may not need a foreigner. They may not need someone to come in, because they have good nationals, they have good locals. So they may just prioritize those players over an American. Why are we gonna pay an American $1,000, the flights, which are $2,000, his food, his lodging, all of that, which is gonna equal $4,000, let's say, versus we can just get a local who can average maybe a little less or similar stats, but we only pay him $2,000, half the cost. Or we only pay him $1,500, who knows? So that is something that you have to consider as well, is the competition. It is fierce in Europe to move up in these leagues. And the fourth one is the playing style. Europe is not for everyone. This basketball is very technical. It requires multiple reads, multiple actions, a lot of patience, and most importantly of all, a lot of team ball. It is very, very different from North American basketball. You will run through 1, 2, 3 sequences within a single set before you're even allowed to look at the rim. Now, we can argue whether that's for right or wrong. In my opinion, I think a lot of the actions are unnecessary, but it doesn't matter what I think, because at the end of the day, your coach is going to determine whether you play or not, and not me. So I say that to say not everyone's playing style is going to vibe with Europe at all. If you are more one-on-one, if you're more individualistic, if you like to get out and run, then there are going to be different regions in the world that may actually benefit you more than Europe. And if you're interested in learning more about those areas and what they have to offer, then click this video right here. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching. Take care, guys. Peace.